Hey, I'm Chris, and this is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my predictions for UFC 208, Holm versus Randamie, which happens on February 11th. Main cards on pay-per-view, prelims on FS1, and then there's also Fight Pass prelims as well. But before I get into the predictions, I'd like to plug a couple things. First will be my author's website at www.chrismaldong.com. Next thing I like to plug would be my storytelling podcast, Chris's Storytelling Corner, do um, where I read some of my short stories and whatnot, and do like manga reviews and make a list about like just kind of whatever I want that are like television, anime, or entertainment related. So on to this card. For a pay per view, I can I have to say I am not particularly looking forward to this card. Um, you got a couple good prospects on the card. This main card is just it's all right, but it's not great. I mean, yeah, home versus even home versus Durandami, it's like okay, Holm's coming off a two-fight losing streak, and Germaine Randamie, she's coming off a win over Larissa Pacheco and Panda Almos, and Almos fights at like 115. She has like what a 6-3 record, I think. Randamie. I mean, this is probably a better weight class for her, and stylistically, it's an interesting matchup. Um, but I'm not particularly excited for this fight, or particularly excited for this new weight division that the UFC has not announced any other fighters for. So I'm guessing like Megan Anderson might be a part of this division. Some other bantamweights will probably move up, but I really and Chris Cyborg's out for like a year. Um, I really wonder why they put this division together and not 100 women's 125. I mean, Anderson Silva's fighting, but he's fighting Brunson, and that it's cool seeing Anderson, and there is a chance he can win. There's always a chance, but like it's he's just fighting like a up and comer, and it's one of those like aging vets, aging greats versus like up and comer. Jacare versus Boetsch is like a stay busy fight for Souza, really. Cannonier versus Glover Teixeira. I mean, that's interesting. It's like let me just get to the card actually, because like I hate to be so down on this card, but like it's really hard for me to be particularly positive. But hey, it's fights. This can be really exciting too. So, in the main event for the women's featherweight title, Holly Holm fights Germaine de Randamie. So, Germaine de Randamie has like a multitude of like Muay Thai, kickboxing accolades. In MMA, her one of the biggest problems with de Randamie in MMA is that in all of her fights that she lost, I think it's Porto Nunez Bud, if I'm not mistaken. It's because she got taken down. I remember Julia Budd actually it was on the Strikeforce Challengers card. She just grinded her. That was a boring fight. Amanda Nunes just took her down from the clinch, from like a body lock, I think, and got mount and just started ground and pounding her. Didn't see the Porto fight, but I think that was actually by a sub. Uh, the interesting thing with Derondami is that like her best win arguably is against Julie Kedzie. If you look at her record, her best win probably is against Julie Kedzie, where she got a split. Um, she's fighting Holly Holm though. Holly Holm has her own striking accolades, particularly in boxing. Um, but she's a great. She has a strong kicking game too. Well, good side kicks and really good left high kick too. That has knocked opponents out in the past, including Ronda Rousey. her her striking is actually really odd because it's this weird high volume striking. A lot of it actually misses. She was kind of exposed in the Valentina Shevchenko fight when Holly Holm led, and she led like the whole fight. She just got countered all day, and she didn't seem to have a lot of variety in her combinations. It was really just same combinations, same counter that kept hitting her. It was like a lead hook. Um, and both of these opponents don't take opponents to the ground. They don't seem to have very good ground games. Holly Holm, I mean, she took Ronda Rousey down actually, but she just got right back up. And when Holm has been taken down, it seems that she just wants to get back to her feet. Randamie, same deal, but I don't think she's as good as Holm getting back to her feet as she's taken down. I don't think it'll matter here, but it it's also a Greg Jackson thing too with Holly Holm. I mean, I think Randamie trains out of AKA these days, if I'm not mistaken. But you have to wonder what the game plan is. I mean, it's like we've seen a weakness in Randamie. You gotta wonder if they're gonna exploit it, you know, and that being the ground, and that she can get taken down. If this fight stays standing though, power has to go to Randamie. Holly Holm is a good counter striker. Randamie can also push forward. She also has a really good clinch game. As far as countering goes, she looks fine. It's not the basis of her game or like where she's strongest striking, but it's not like she can't counter. And that makes it interesting because, like I said, Holm misses a lot. She plays this range striking game where if she doesn't lead and the opponent comes to her, then Holly Holm actually does pretty well. She also has like really like besides that Ronda Rousey fight and arguably maybe that Shevchenko fight, she doesn't have the most aesthetically pleasing type fights either. They're kind of boring, is what I'm saying. She's on her bike a lot. She uses a lot of movement. She'll kind of come in with a flurry of like it's usually just straight punches, where she more or less kias like the whole time, um, with not a lot of power. Part of that too is just that she doesn't really sit on her punches. I don't think Randamie is just gonna rush at her though. And a lot of opponents have. Did Pennington didn't really rush at her too much, and so there was a lot of just nothing going on in that fight. With Holm just doing a little more, and obviously um, Ronda Rousey kept going towards her head first. Miesha Tate, I mean, she'd get picked apart from the outside, but there isn't anything that was like fight ending. And against Shevchenko, when Holm led, she got countered all the time. With that said, I'm actually going to go with Germaine Randamie to win this one by decision. Some things are a bit worrisome. One, I know Holm can go 5 rounds. She's gone 5 rounds before. And I don't know if Randamie can. Randamie seems to have more power. Since the assumption is that this fight will remain standing, and places like the clinch also, like an inside game, Randamie is really good there too with her knees and whatnot. And she can, it's not like she can strike from the outside. It To me, this fight seems like it'll be a boring decision that Holm wins, pick apart from the outside, and get on her bike a lot, with maybe like Randamie like stalking or something. I can see Randamie just doing what Shevchenko did and just countering a lot and not rushing forward. And also, like I said, it's from what I've seen from Randamie, it's not in her game to just rush forward with strikes anyways. She's a disciplined striker in her own right. She hasn't been able to show it off a lot because opponents tried to take her down so much. But like I said, I really think that the Randamie can just replicate what Shevchenko did, and maybe even go forward a little more, even get the clinch a couple more times. Um, Hit her with the harder shots too, because like Shevchenko isn't like particularly powerful, but like De Randamie is. So yeah, with that said, I'm gonna go with Germaine De Randamie to win by decision. Next fight after that, Anderson Silva fights Derek Brunson. So we all know Anderson Silva, but the thing is, he's not in his prime anymore. The guy's in his 40s. A lot of his reflexes are gone. He goes up against a cage and just works defense, and he doesn't predicate his defense with his offense. Like, he can still move his head quite well, actually. He doesn't predicate that with any strikes. So a guy like Michael Bisping just kind of teed off on him against a cage. Missed a lot, but Anderson didn't do anything with it. Anderson's still capable of crazy stuff. He hit that flying knee on Bisping. In his last fight, he actually hit Daniel Cormier with what seemed like a good body shot. He's still dangerous. He still seemingly hits hard, too. His chin has deteriorated. His takedown defense has always been good, but not great. And that's another place that Derek Brunson can have the advantage. Problem with Derek Brunson, and you can watch this in any of his highlights, and it cost him in the Whitaker fight, is his propensity to start swinging and leaving his chin out. and and when he fought Whitaker, everyone asks, like, oh, why did he do that? And it's like, oh, because, he said he wanted a knockout. The fact of the matter is, this is not the first time he's done that. Like, if you watch him, like, beat up Sam Alvey, he does the same thing. He gets him against a cage, like, close to, if not against a cage, swings pretty wildly, but connects, and eventually knocks his opponent out. I think he did that to Ed Herman, too. He just kind of rushed him. But when he rushes the guys, he always sticks his chin up. I mean, that's just his thing. He's not a bad striker. He's definitely improved as a striker quite a bit. I remember when he first got in, second fight in the UFC, hit that head kick, knocked out Uriah Hall. He's deceptively long. Like he has deceptively long strikes. His problem is when he strikes, he always keeps his chin up. That's his biggest problem as a striker. He's a good wrestler with good top control when he needs to use it. It's pretty big for the weight class, too. It is a bit worrisome. I don't think he's training with Jackson Winklejohn these days. I think he's training like at his own gym or something like that. So I don't really know how that's going to work for him. With that said, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I want to see Anderson Silva win. I think if Derek Brunson fought like he did against Whitaker, there's a chance. But also, there's a chance that Brunson just knocks out Anderson Silva at this point of his career, regardless, if he connects. And then Brunson can always go to his wrestling if need be. With that said, I am going to go Derek Brunson to win this one. I am very tempted to say KO or TKO, but I'll just go with a decision. I think he's probably going to wrestle him more than anything else. Next one is that Ronaldo Jacare Souza fights Tim Boetsch. Tim Boetsch, tough guy, big for weight class. He has the redneck judo. He hits deceptively hard. He has a good clinch and really good uppercuts from the clinch. Not the best defensively. Gets hit quite clean. Takedown defense is kind of up and down, like some of the better wrestlers take him down. And it's not like he's not takedownable, But he can get taken down. Has been submitted before. Got submitted by Kimura and against Phil Davis. And the reason why I find that important is because Jacare, when he fought like Musasi, for example, when he Herman, who's the other guy that he keeps beating up? Kamosi. He'll go for those arm attacks, and the Chimera is actually one of Jacare's strongest weapons. So I say that because I still have images of Boetsch getting like Chimera'd in a cool way by Phil Davis. Jacare Souza. We all know he's one of the top BJJ practitioners in the world. His striking has improved as he's a good boxer. He's a pretty decent boxer with some power in his strikes. His takedown ability is very underrated, though. I mean, he actually is quite good at both the clinch takedowns. He can actually go for a double leg takedown too. Um, he kind of uses his striking still to get his opponent to the ground. Otherwise, he's a very complete fighter, and I can't help but think that this is something of a stay busy fight for him. And Boetsch has played spoiler before. It's not outside the realm of possibility that Boetsch gets some crazy punch in or whatnot and knocks out Jacare. I don't see it. I see Jacare being able to take Boetsch down, and I see him being able to submit him. I'll probably just go with an arm lock too, like arm bar or Chimera. So, yeah, I'll go with Jacare to win this one by submission. So right after that, Cannonier fights Glover Teixeira. Cannonier in his last fight against Ian Cutelaba looked really good. Heavy-handed guy. Takedown defense, not great, but not bad. He did get taken down early by Ion. Later on was able to defend his takedowns, and he's pretty tough, too, all things considered. I mean, yeah, he got knocked out by Sean Jordan, but no, it's fine. I like Cannonier. He actually uses some head movement and has some pretty decent boxing. Go with heavy-handedness and toughness. He's fighting Glover Teixeira, who's very experienced. But one thing that's very interesting is that in his last fight against Anthony Rumble Johnson, he got knocked out. And he's not a guy that traditionally gets knocked out, but you gotta wonder if his chin is cracking. At Teixeira's best, he is an inside boxer with real heavy hands. Pretty underrated wrestling. His takedown defense isn't that great. He tends to just defend with the guillotine. He's actually not bad at getting. He's pretty good actually at getting back to his feet when he's taken down, though. And when he's on top, he is a killer. If he gets mount on you, it is over. This guy will ground and pound you, and he will also arm triangle you. He has a really strong arm triangle. Can take the back too. Remember he took OSP's back and choked him out. So he is a legit BJJ black belt. Only thing that makes this interesting is just the fact that like Glover was knocked out in his last fight. Cannonier is pretty heavy-handed. Might be able to do that to Teixeira. One thing that Teixeira has, though, like I said, he's an underrated grappler. I mean, like a wrestler. His grappling is like pretty well known. His wrestling, though, isn't that bad. It's a pretty good single. Uses it quite well. And once he's on top, he is, very strong up there. So that tells me that Teixeira just has more ways to win. Standing, he can actually probably hang, I would say they're probably equal to each other as far as like stand-up goes. But, when you add in the wrestling and BJJ, I have to go with Glover Teixeira to win this one. If it does get tricky in the stand-up, I think you can rely on his wrestling, get the fight to the ground, and maybe even get the sub. And I think they're both capable of knocking each other out. I would still argue, despite the fact that Teixeira got knocked out by Rumble, it's not like he can't box or something. It doesn't make him like a lesser boxer or anything like that. It's not like Cannonier. I mean, yeah, Sean Jordan's a heavyweight and whatnot, but Cannonier got knocked out too, so it's not like he's not knockoutable. That's a word. So nonetheless, I am gonna go Glover Teixeira. I'll play it safe. I'll go by sub. Um, Upset potential, I guess, is there, but we'll see. Next fight after that, Jim Miller fights Dustin Poirier. Jim Miller, all around good fighter. Biggest problem with Jim Miller, though, is when he's put on his back, he tends to want to stay on his back, and he has gotten ground and pounded because of it against guys like Joe Lozon, Benson, um, who else? Just all guys who generally are able to take him down. It's not that they can keep him down; he keeps himself down and gets pounded. But he's always hunting for a sub. Stand up, you know, Miller is good there. He is good at mixing his stand up with his wrestling. Beat out Thiago Alves in the last fight, if I'm not mistaken, by just doing that. He just mixes a stand up, got takedowns when they presented themselves, and then just stay on top. Just an overall well rounded fighter. He's fighting Dustin Poirier, though, who has been knocking dudes out. Uh, he One of his weaknesses was exposed in his stand-up when he got knocked out by Michael Johnson. He does not have an exit strategy. He is a guy that will throw a combination and stay in the pocket, and kind of just marvel at his handiwork, I guess. But it cost him against Michael Johnson. Um, and I don't think it's going to cost him against Jim Miller because Jim Miller isn't known to be that heavy-handed. Wrestling-wise, Dustin Poirier is an underrated grappler. He has a really good Darce. He can go to the ground if he wants. He is actually pretty good there on top. He beat up one dude, Joseph Duffy. Took him down, just ground and pounded him quite well. um, and Dustin Poirier's takedown defense, I actually just read a stat, like the last time he got taken down, I don't know how many guys have tried to actually take him down, but the last time he got taken down was like 2 or 3 years ago or something like that. Last time he got subbed was like 4 years ago. So, him being on his back and especially getting sub, I don't see that happening. With that said, Jim Miller, he's getting older, but he's still there. He's still a pretty durable guy, but his chin has gotten cracked here and there. And Dustin Poirier is just younger, and does other things that Jim Miller does well. I think Dustin Poirier is just a little better. I think he's a better striker. Jim Miller's a good wrestler, but I can see Poirier defending his takedowns. On the ground, I'd say Miller's probably a little better. MMA grappling wise, well, no, I'd say Miller's better on the ground in general because he can go for things like leg locks. He has arm bars and whatnot. He definitely has more variety. Um, but it's not like Dustin Poirier is. He's no slouch on the ground himself. That's what I'm saying. Regardless, I like Dustin Poirier here. I actually have him winning by knockout. He's still an accurate striker, defensively flawed, but he hits real hard, real accurately, and he is a pretty potent finisher too, as of late. So Dustin Poirier by knockout. Okay, on the FS1 prelims, Randy Brown fights Belal Muhammed. So Belal Muhammed, so last fight against Vicente Luque got knocked out. Biggest problem with, there's actually two problems with Belal Muhammad's striking. One, he only wants to box, okay? Not just that, it seems like he only wants to headhunt these days. Two, he doesn't move his head. So he has two issues. And they have cost him when he fought, like Alan Joban managed to drop him a couple times, and then Vicente Luque just knocked him clean out. Dude doesn't move his head. He did in that one fight against Montano. He actually showed an improved wrestling game, so I liked seeing that from him. Randy Brown, he's one of the tallest welterweights here, and he's actually shown a pretty good front headlock series. So he has good front chokes. His stand-up's actually improved quite a bit too. He seems to be learning how to fight long. Because the dude's like 6'2", 6. He's one of like the tallest guys in the division. Hits pretty hard and is a good athlete as well. Wrestling wise, his takedown defense still needs some work, but like it's not. I mean, it's not. Like he has gotten taken down by the likes of like Graves, for example. Graves is actually a pretty good wrestler, and like Belal Muhammad's. Like, he showed some good wrestling in that one fight, but I don't know if he'll be able to take Randy Brown down consistently. The other problem, like I said with Belal Muhammad, his head is there to get hit. And Randy Brown, long guy, you know, and he can throw some pretty long strikes if need be. And like I said, good front headlock series, which is good for defending takedowns, actually, if you're going for like doubles and singles. So with that said, I like Randy Brown to win this one. I'm actually going to go by finish too. I'll go by KO or TKO. I think he can. I think he's just going to be the longer fighter. I think Muhammad's going to have kind of a hard time finding his range and getting past that reach. So, and I don't think Randy Brown will have as much of an issue with that against Belal Muhammad. So yeah, Randy Brown by KO or TKO. So right after that, Wilson Hayes fights Ulka Sasaki. Sasaki, his striking is not very good. His defense is not very good. What he is good at, his takedown defense is, his offensive takedown ability is not too bad, and he is particularly good at taking the back. That's the thing. Takedown, pass the dominant position, get the back, get the choke. He is really good at that. The problem is, you find Wilson Hayes, who, in my opinion, is just a better version of Ulka Sasaki, really. Everywhere. Striking, wrestling, BJJ. Guy has an underrated, his takedown ability from the clinch is quite underrated. Showed against, Dustin Ortiz, that he was able to take him down over and over again. Hayes can also take the back as well. And I remember there was that one dude that fought Ulka Sasaki. I forgot his name. Also a really strong BJJ practitioner. Was able to submit Ulka Sasaki, if I'm not mistaken. I really don't see why Wilson Hayes can't do the same. One thing about Wilson Hayes, too, even standing, his defense is not that good standing, and he has been dropped. The thing is, though, he has shown to be relatively heavy-handed with his strikes, but his takedown game is solid and actually quite underrated. And his BJJ game is insanely good. If he's on top, man, you're done. You're probably gonna end up with Hayes in a dominant position, and even from the ground, Wilson Hayes he's really well known for like a deep half series, if I'm not mistaken. Just haven't seen it in MMA for like the longest time, you know. But it's not like he's a slouch anywhere on the ground. So with that said, I'm gonna go Wilson Hayes to win this one by submission. So right with that, Nick Lentz fights Islam Makhachev. Interesting fight because Nick Lentz has been around the block for a while. If you want to call this a prospect versus veteran fight, I think that is very appropriate here. Very interesting fight because Nick Lentz is a workhorse. He is a guy that isn't the cleanest striker. He doesn't fight pretty. He fights ugly, but he fights very aggressively. You can see that in a lot of his fights, too, when he fought, like, Castillo. Even in that last fight, I forget the guy he fought, though. He got dropped, which was kind of worrisome. But then he took him down and just beat him up, He's tough and aggressive. And he has really good top control, too. So, that is a recipe for a tough fight. Islam Makhachev is one of the better prospects of the division. His striking still needs some work. There's nothing about it that's particularly like memorable. You know, he can strike. Um, I just don't know. Um, yeah, it's not like one of his like strongest suits. The thing is, he has a really good grappling background. Is he Sambo champ? I think he's a Sambo champ. Um, and that's where this becomes interesting because of I wonder if Makhachev can take Lentz down or if Lentz can take Makhachev down and if they can keep each other down. That's really what I'm wondering here. Um, I was actually gonna go Makhachev to win this one. I can't say I'm still confident in that one because Lentz is just a more aggressive guy. Um, but I just don't know if he can take Makhachev down. I think a lot of the basis of what Lentz can do is going to probably be predicated if he can take Makhachev down or not. I mean, he did strike with Castillo. It was sloppy, but like he did, like he is a willing striker if need be. If we were to assume that this fight is predicated on the takedown ability, Lentz is no slouch as a wrestler, but I just kind of like Makhachev there. He's a bit cleaner with his technique, just in a lot of areas, in his like takedown ability and whatnot. Lentz is man, that guy fights ugly, but man, he wins. that's wrong, and I'm not confident in this pick at all now. But I'm gonna go Islam Makhachev to win this one by decision. I think he might be able to take Lentz down. He arguably is the more technical guy and just a more polished guy at this point, whereas Lentz is more the aggressive guy. But man, he knows how to get the job done. But nonetheless, I'll go Islam Makhachev to win by decision. Not confident in this pick whatsoever. Next after that, Jared Brooks fights Ian McCall. So I saw a Jared Brooks fight. It's one of his older fights though. It's against this guy named C.J. Hamilton. I didn't really see much that impressed me though too much, except that the guy is terribly aggressive. I mean, he's super aggressive. He just pushes forward. He seems kind of small for this division. I heard he's fought as low as like animal weight, so the size advantage should go to Uncle Creepy here. But he kept pushing forward, kept getting his butt against the cage, and kept trying to get that takedown. Um, Striking didn't look that great. I mean, actually, he got kneed in that fight I saw. He got kneed in the head and actually almost got finished. So his striking isn't anything that's really noteworthy. Um, Ian McCall can't seem to get a fight, and he keeps getting injured. But he finally got a fight here against Jared Brooks. Ian McCall's boxing style is in and out. He'll go in, throw some strikes, and get out. In and out. And then he'll sometimes mix up his wrestling. There are guys like John Lineker who managed to use a guillotine to stop Ian McCall from wrestling. I don't know if Jared Brooks has that ability. Um, I don't know if his aggression is enough for that in and out style. I think McCall can just go in, go out, get on his bike, go in, get out, frustrate Brooks. Really. Both are pretty good wrestlers, and it's flyweight. So I say that because even if you're a good wrestler at flyweight, everyone is a good scrambler. I mean, there's no it is so hard to keep opponents on the ground at flyweight. With that said, there are some things about Ian McCall that are a bit worrisome. One, he hasn't fought in a while, and this guy is hyper aggressive. Nonetheless, I gotta go with Ian McCall. He's just more experienced, not taking the fight on short notice. He does have a style that may actually work. Just go in, throw some strikes, get out, get on his bike, maybe mix in some takedowns, keep him honest. Ian McCall by decision. Next fight after that, and this is on the UFC Fight Pass, Justin Willis fights Marcin Teixeira. So I saw a fight, Justin Willis actually fights at AKA. He's like a 29-year-old heavyweight. He can actually probably lose some weight, to be honest with you. Nonetheless, he showed some decent. I saw one of his fights against a guy named Kirby, and he mainly just actually took him down and just beat him up. His striking didn't look too bad. He fought in I think it was World Series of Fighting. I somewhat remember that fight. um, Otherwise, there's really not much else to say about him at this point. Marcin Teixeira, BJJ brown belt. If he gets the takedown, he is very good on top. His striking has improved. He saw it against Victor Pesta. He got that head kick knockout on him, and is just a much more experienced fighter. Justin Willis only has like 4 or 5 pro MMA belts under his belt. First fight in the UFC, and he's taking the fight on short notice. So that works against Willis here. So with that said, Teixeira, more experienced, probably the better, I guess, BJJ practitioner. I don't know if he's a better wrestler per se, but Teixeira's not a bad wrestler, and he can strike. So with that said, I like Marcin Teixeira to win this one. I honestly have a bad feeling this is not going to be a great fight. Now, hey, could we see a knockout or something? Yeah, but I don't know if this is the fight that's gonna be like that. Let's be hopeful. How about this? Marcin Teixeira by submission. Let's go in for Marcin Teixeira KO or TKO. Looks like a TKO. Because Justin Willis took the fight on short notice, I don't know what his gas thing's going to be like. Teixeira has shown improvement in his strikes, and if he gets a guy tired enough, really, he could just actually win by TKO in that way. So, let's go Marcin Teixeira by TKO. So after that, Roan Carneiro fights Ryan LaFlare. Carneiro, BJJ black belt, really good at taking the back. Striking, it's just kind of sloppy. Ryan LaFlare, good wrestler. This guy's a really underrated clinch takedown game. And his striking is it's just clean. One thing I like, I actually am relatively high on Ryan LaFlare. I think he's good everywhere, but he's not particularly great at one aspect of the game. And he is very blue collar. He's just one of those guys that is constantly working. If he takes you down, he'll do some ground and pound standing. He throws at a relatively good clip. He actually beat one of his last opponents he beat is like well known for just being tough and making fights ugly, and he beat him. And I totally forgot the guy's name. He's got cut from the UFC. Pierce, yeah. Yeah, when he fought like Mike Pierce, he's just constantly working, he'll strike pretty well, mix in his takedowns, and it just has a real blue-collar work rate. So with that said, I like Ryan LaFlare here. I can't... Roan Carneiro's last fight against, man, I forgot the guy's name. Was terrible. It was just absolutely terrible, though. This last fight, absolutely terrible. Both guys didn't do much of anything. Ryan Flair, I could just see him outworking him on the feet. If he wants to get takedowns on Carneiro, he probably can. I don't know if he'll want to, but I think he beats him up on the feet anyways. So, Ryan LaFlare by decision. And finally, Rick Land fights Phillipe Nover. Nover, he's kind of just like jack of all trades, master of none. Striking's alright, can wrestle, his Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills are solid. He's relatively tough, but there's nothing notable about, he's not the next Anderson Silva or GSP. Or like he was made out to be in the Ultimate Fighter. Rick Glenn, former World Series of Fighting champion, fought Evan Dunham and showed some amazing heart in that fight. One thing that's really notable about him right now is that he's, I believe he's a full-time fighter. Quit his job from Costco and is just fighting full-time. He has a lot of potential. His striking isn't as good as like Evan Dunham's, obviously, but he actually strikes pretty well. He took that fight on short notice, didn't he? I think he took that fight on short notice too, and he fought in the weight class that at 155 instead of 145, and Evan Dunham's actually pretty big for that weight class. So one thing about Glenn too, his takedown ability is actually pretty good, and he actually has a pretty nasty ground and pound too. I don't think we saw the best Rick Glenn in his last fight. We saw how tough the guy is, but I don't think we saw his skills. I think he might be a better striker and wrestler than Nover. I might be able to just do a little more. So, with that said, I am going to go with Rick Glenn to win this one by decision. So, to recap, I have Germaine Randamie beating Holm by decision. Derek Brunson over Anderson Silva. I think I said decision, possible KO or TKO. Ronaldo Souza beating Tim Boetsch by submission. Glover Teixeira over Jared Cannonier by submission. And Dustin Poirier over Jim Miller by KO or TKO. Okay, on the FS1 prelims, I'm Randy Brown over Belal Muhammed. I think I called KO or TKO, right? Wilson Hayes over Ulka Sasaki by submission. Islam Makhachev over Nick Lentz by decision. And Ian McCall over Jared Brooks by decision. On the Fight Pass prelims, I'm Marcin Teixeira over Justin Willis by KO or TKO. Ryan LaFlare over Roan Carneiro by decision. And Rick Glenn beating Phillipe Nover by decision. So that's pretty much it for my predictions for UFC 208, Holm versus Randamie. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And please check out my author's website at www.chrismoldong.com. Check out my storytelling podcasts at Chris's Storytelling Corner. So that's pretty much it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.